Good morning, guys. You able to hear me? What's up? So another day, another class, एक और कहानी. Voice is all clear, I guess. Perfect. So, guys, see, till yesterday, we've seen the story where I discussed about how um, we see the happenings of storming of the Bastille Fort. Like July 14th, people go and storm Bastille Fort. Just 1 second, guys. Just 1 second. Just 1 second, I'll be back. Just 1 second. Hmm. There was a small technical problem. Okay, so we've seen till the storming of Bastille Fort, and now we need to cover the remaining story. See, the people actually stormed Bastille Fort because they were under the impression that the king is trying to do everything possible to actually stop the revolt. I mean, the common people were of the opinion that king is trying to stop the rebellion, trying to stop the revolution. So they actually saw this, and the trigger for that thought was the removal of Jacques Necker. Necker was removed, and the removal of Jacques Necker did not go very well with the people. People actually thought that Necker's removal is basically a movement, a kind of attempt where the king is trying to stop the revolution and stop the entire movement. I mean, people were of the impression that king was trying to stop the rebellion and stop the revolution. I mean, that was the only idea which people had. The king is trying to end the revolution. Now, after the Bastille Fort storming, after the storming of the Bastille Fort in August 1789, in August 1789, um, people, you remember the Constituent Assembly, the National Assembly, the third estate, which had become the Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly declared a new sort of constitution, which they called the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. They declared the establishment of a new constitution called the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. On the 26th of August 1789, the National Assembly issued a declaration under this. It was basically a document which guaranteed judicial matters, equality of people, free speech, liberty, equality, fraternity, all those sort of regular principles were implemented. Every Frenchman was actually equal. Every Frenchman was declared as equal. Now, यहाँ पे एक problem है. All the declaration of rights, all the free speech and all the rights are actually being given to a man, not to a woman. It is declaration of rights of man and citizen, not woman and man or not just citizen. Now you understand. So there was one lady who asked for women. When she asked, she was killed. There was one lady who asked for rights for women. जब वो पूछी थी, she was killed. So by August 26, 1989, 5 rights were declared as the rights of man. Men are born and remain equal before the law. Men were given freedom of speech, freedom of press, and also of religion. The right to take part in the government was also there for all men. And all men had also the right to hold public office. And equally, a right to fair trial. Good morning, Bandinga. So equally a right to fair trial. So all this were given. Liberty, equality, and fraternity became the core principles on which the France or the French nation was to be established. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty to the people, equality of all people, fraternity or the brotherhood of the people. Adopted on 26th of August 1789, and it was entirely based on Enlightenment ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, and it basically outlined all the basic freedoms to be enjoyed by the people of France, and it asserted the sovereignty of the people, liberty, equality, fraternity. My question for you: does this change anything for the common man? Is he going to get the bread? Just because there is liberty, equality, fraternity, people are not going to find bread. So trust me, this became a core principle in the future. Understand that any revolution cannot succeed until the people actually find food to eat. And common people do not have too many hopes or too many ideas or too many demands or too many aims. They just want liberty. They just want food to eat. ये problem था. See, the National Assembly created a Republican France, gave it a Republican idea eventually, and all that happened. But nothing really changed on ground. Those in power got more power, that's it. But nothing really changed in reality. At the same time, now rebellion began to spread into the hinterlands of France. See, originally in July, the entire revolution was only limited to Paris. By the time of August 1789, the revolution began to spread into the hinterlands of Paris, hinterlands of Europe, hinterlands of France. Peasants began to destroy the countryside. The landlords lost all their power. Feudal privileges ended completely. It led to an absolute chaos. That year, October 1789. October 1789. The lower classes, particularly women of the fishing class, fisherwomen, these women had specific complaints. They were very, very unsatisfied, and thousands of them were starving. These women were starving. The peasants went on a march on Versailles. These fisherwomen eventually went on a march to Versailles, the Palace of Versailles, and there they demanded bread. They demanded food to eat. यहीं पे एक छोटा सा किस्सा हो गया था. Good morning, Parthiban. Sitting in the balcony, when women were asking bread to eat, Marie Antoinette gave her famous statement: if they can't find bread, let them have cake. Marie Antoinette famously gave the statement, let them have cake. When people heard this, they went nuts. I mean, this statement actually showed the arrogance and the foolishness of Marie. The royal family immediately was brought back to Paris. They were sitting in Versailles. Versailles is about 90 miles away from Paris. They were sitting in Versailles, and people nearly killed the queen. They almost killed the queen. यही पीरियड में There was one lady called Olympia de Gorgeous. She gave the famous Declaration of Rights of Women. She demanded rights for women. She said, why should only men have the rights? Why not women? And because she demanded the rights, she was killed. She was hanged to death. She was killed. Later, she was actually executed on the idea of demanding rights for women. See, look, this is an old school Catholic society, patriarchal system, where people do not believe in things like equality of law, equality of civilization, equality of all. नहीं, आपके हिसाब से हमेशा याद रख लो, Olympia de Gorgeous can comfortably called in world's first feminist, modern feminist, world's first modern feminist. She was executed under the pretext of being a counter-revolutionary. See, by 1791, France had become a constitutional monarchy. There was a constitution now. As of August 1789, there was a constitution. Constitutional monarchy came into existence. King was removed all the powers. Legislative powers were gone. He only had suspensive veto. In fact, that is a bill, he can keep it for himself, but that's it. All rights of the king were gone. The legislative assembly, a proper legislative assembly, was formed in 1791 October with a sort of system, clearing on separation of powers based on Montesquieu principle, rule of law based on Lockean principle, popular sovereignty again based on John Locke's idea of popular sovereignty of or people's right to rule. No, October 1791. Look, please understand this point of view. All these are political changes. But don't you think actually the French problem is primarily an economic problem? Right? The actual French problem is an economic problem. It's not a political problem. This is where the entire confusion is. Nobody was trying to solve the actual problem. Simply they are bringing, see, pehle they said National Assembly, then they said Constituent Assembly, then they said Constituent Monarchy, now they are saying Legislative Assembly. And the Arvind Kejriwal batch, which is the Aam Aadmi Party, was like, किसको फर्क पड़ता है? खाने के लिए ब्रेड तो दे दो. Where is the bread? At the end of the day, the question is, where is the bread? ये पीरियड में in 1792 other European nations, there were other kingdoms in Europe. Um, uh, Austria, Prussia, Spain, Sardinia, Holland, ये सब भी थे. The other European nations, other monarchies in Europe invaded France. See, these European nations had only one aim. France must not have the revolution because if the revolution is successful in France, the same revolution will start in their country. That will create more trouble, more problems, right? Exactly. So they formed a coalition called the First War Coalition 1792. This coalition is called the Shapes: Spain, Holland, Austria, Prussia, England, Sardinia. For the people, see, while Louis the 16th did not invite this group came by themselves. For the French people, it looked like the French king only invited the coalition against the revolution. So after Shape's invasion, the common people would have become more and more anti-king, no? The common people would have been completely anti-king. The French people fought against this coalition and also held responsible the French king for the same. People thought it was the king who invited them. So after the Shape's invasion, the National Assembly was gone. A new government was created called the National Convention. The National Assembly was removed. There was another mini revolution, and a new government was created called the National Convention. National Convention basically had members who were above the age of 25, made a legislative assembly of 749 members. Oh, yes, yes, yes. National Convention in 1792 was completely dominated by radicals. These radicals are the ones whom we call Jacobins. When you're reading Tipu Sultan, you actually hear about a club called the Jacobin Club, who were promoting liberty, equality, fraternity. It is those guys, yes. Under pressure from radicals among its members, Legislative Assembly set aside the Constitution of 1791, and the Legislative Assembly immediately removed the king, dissolved the already existing National Assembly, called for elections to a new government and a new legislature. So the August 1789 convention was banned, removed. That that old constitution that is gone now. A new government was created, which abolished the monarchy, declared France as a republic. All adult male citizens were given the right to vote and also to hold office. Women were also given a note with a right to vote. Sorry, women were not given right to vote. No right to vote for women. Women had no right to vote. They were not to be equal. People responsible for these changes were generally known as the Jacobins. They eventually were so adamant against the king that they killed the king. The king was guillotined. सूली पे चढ़ा दिया राजा को. The politics of National Convention in 1792 to 1795 was based on two groups, the Montagnards or the Girondists. These were like two political parties. Two political parties. The Girondists were basically based in provinces, whereas Montagnards were mainly based in Paris. And their main support came from sans-culottes. Sans-culottes were basically the radicals, Jacobins only, absolute radicals. See, by this time, by 1792-93, now the common people's logic was not only the revolution, but also kill the king, because as long as the king is alive, revolution cannot conclude. जब तक राजा जिंदा है, revolution successful नहीं हो सकता, राजा को मार दो. The entire idea was built on that. Let us kill the king. Whereas the Girondians were of the idea that king is nothing but a puppet. Let us not kill the king. Let us kill the kingdom. The Girondians were of the idea that we need to kill the kingdom, not the king. The National Convention eventually had a bigger problem, and the radicals eventually took over the government. They dominated it. They brought Louis the 16th to Paris, outside the palace, and beheaded him. The problem here was Louis the 16th was actually trying to escape in a place called Varennes. He was caught escaping with his entire entourage. The problem with Louis the 16th is ये आदमी सच में बेवकूफ था. He was actually trying to escape, but unfortunately, uncle was trying to escape along with his entire entourage, entire group. मतलब पूरे हाथी, घोड़ा गाड़ी and all that पी करते हुए भाग रहा था. And king trying to escape from Paris was seen as an anti-revolutionary activity by the king. It was seen as an anti-revolutionary activity by the king. I think Sandeep and Kunal have not come yet, right? Sandeep, Kunal. Louis the 16th and his family attempted to flee France. They tried to escape. They were arrested at Vergennes. They were eventually Louis was executed by the National Convention. The National Convention put a case of sedition on Louis, and he was convicted of treason against the government and executed. He went to guillotine 4 days later in January 1793. The National Convention abolished monarchy, made France a republic. In fact, the National Convention was so radical, they even removed Sunday because they believed that because of Sunday, church was having unwanted influence. They even removed Sunday. They removed Sunday. Thermidorian reaction. So National Convention had two groups, the Republicans and the Constitutionalists. Republicans as Jacobins and Girondins, Montagnards. Jacobins are also called Montagnards. The main leaders of the National Convention were Jean-Paul Marat and Georges Danton. They were strong people. They were both from actually the liberal group. They improved the army, gave voting rights to all male citizens of France, etc. But the most dangerous person within the National Convention, also the leader of the Jacobin Club, was a guy called Maximilien Robespierre. In fact, in the year 1793, Robespierre established another thing. Even National Convention was not able to establish any improvement. Like, for example, see, till now we had National Assembly, then Constituent Assembly, then we had a French constitutional monarchy. Now we've got National Convention with Republican system. But up तक France has achieved nothing. Hashtag where is the bread is still on the top trending. लोगों में अब तक ये प्रॉब्लम तो था वेयर इज द ब्रेड. And Robespierre himself was a lawyer, very radical Jacobin. In a way, he was the most controversial figure of the French Revolution, of the entire French revolutionary unit. He was the most controversial figure. He aimed at establishing a republic by virtue, not republic by nature. Republic by virtue means a republic where only the worthy people live, others have to die. Robespierre created another new government called the Committee of Public Safety. Committee of Public Safety was actually created to stop all internal rebellions within France. It had dictatorial powers and headed by Robespierre only. Robespierre only was the in charge of Committee of Public Safety. He ruled France for nearly 1 year, one full year. Ruled France for one full year. The Committee of Public Safety, CPS. And between 1793 to 1794, this Committee of Public Safety ruled in a government known as the Reign of Terror. During the Reign of Terror, everybody was killed. Even those people who were in favor of Robespierre were killed. Robespierre killed his friends. Robespierre killed his enemies. Robespierre killed his challengers. Robespierre killed his potential challengers. Anybody who was a potential threat or a potential enemy was guillotined. Anybody. In fact, Marie Antoinette was also executed. Marie Antoinette was also guillotined. This machine is guillotine. यहाँ से blade ऐसे नीचे गिरता है and then मुंडी फसक. Finally, after 1 year, Robespierre himself was killed. And another new government came called the Thermidorian government or the Directory. Again, my question remains the same. Not only my question, but the common people's question remains the same. ये सब तो ठीक है. Where is the bread? Where is the bread? They are giving political rights, free speech, ये right, वो right, इसका right, उसका right. वो सब तो ठीक है. Bread कहाँ है? Where is the bread? A major problem. Another new government was brought in called the Directory. In 1795, a new government was brought in called the Directory, which basically had a council of 4 members who were in the membership of the Directory was restricted only to politically active class, all male, about 21 were selected electors. Electors were usually wealthy. Electors chose department officials and members of legislative assembly. There was a lower chamber of 500 members, upper council of 250 members. Married and widowed males over 40 years of age were the members of Council of Ancients, and Directory had 4 member council and 1 chief. Exactly. See, till now, if you see, they brought National Assembly, Constituent Assembly, Constitutional Monarchy. Then they said French Republic. Then they brought in the National Convention. Then they brought the Committee of Public Safety. Then they came the Thermidorian government. Now the problem is all the way. It's been a decade, almost 8 years now, or 6 years now. 1787, everything started. It's already 1795. But bread hasn't come. The common people are still suffering. The inflation has not changed. All people achieved till now is a free speech, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And the common Frenchman had only one question: what should I do with liberty on a hungry stomach? भूखे पेट पे लिबर्टी का क्या करूं मैं शैम्पू करूं That was the problem. Here is the bread. The directory came to power in 1795. It stayed in power for next 4 years till 1799. And on the other side, you remember, Shapes was already invading France. Shapes invasion was going on. French economy was suffering. French polity was suffering. French government was suffering. There is chaos. There is administrative confusion. France is getting defeated war after war after war after war by the European coalition, except one Frenchman. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte. He is actually a French general. He is the only guy who was winning and defeating the Europeans. Everywhere else, French army was losing. The foreign invasion actually brought absolute and total anarchy in France. The directory was very weak. Supporters of the monarchy wanted to restore the Bourbons. Radical revolutionists wanted to regain control. And within directory, there were groups which were few people wanted the Bourbons back, few people wanted the radicals, basically Robespierre group back. There was confusion. France went into further anarchy. Because of all this, finally, Napoleon, Napoleon Bonaparte, did a coup, occupied Paris, and the way Napoleon came to power itself is very unique. He tied four of the directory members to four cannons and उड़ा दिया चारों को. Napoleon was a brilliant military leader. He forced the British troops out of Toulon. He even defeated the Austrians in the Battle of Lyon. And in 1795, he faced the royalist mobs in 1795. He actually used artillery, he used cannons to dispose anybody who was questioning him. And Napoleon was coming very clearly with a single point agenda. He is going to establish absolute rule, totalitarian dictatorship. And the people of France welcomed him because, see, the logic was pretty simple. The French people have had enough. पक चुके थे ये लोग. All by doing revolution, all they got was chaos, confusion, and failure. Nothing else. Right? By doing all this craziness, all they received is chaos, confusion, and absolute failure. Nothing. कुछ भी नहीं मिला इनको. French people and bread also. But whereas Napoleon in return was promising food, promising growth, promising France. But in return, Napoleon insisted on no liberty, no equality, no fraternity. And people did not worry. People were ready to give up their rights for their food. And trust me, every dictator in the world actually came in the same way. Every dictator in the world actually came to power in this way. All dictators come to power only in that way. They'll give you equality, fraternity, they'll give you support, everything. But they will want to establish totalitarian state where you will have unquestioned, unfeathering loyalty towards the ruler. And it is expected from you. The directory eventually failed because directory promoted only the interests of the middle class. The directory could not handle the financial crisis. In fact, directory led to more financial crisis. Directory was extremely corrupt. It led to complete food shortages. And there were total riots in Paris, leading to rise of Napoleon. Napoleon took charge in 1799. He removed the directory, and Napoleon established a new government called the Council, consisting of three members. Napoleon himself became the first council. He did not care to appoint the other two. It was supposed to be a three-member council. So he appointed himself as the first member. The other two he did not care to appoint. Britain, Russia, Austria joined forces to get rid of him, but Napoleon went for diplomacy in the beginning. He went and did a peace treaty in 1802. And finally, he was able to bring the age of Napoleon. From 1799 to 1815, France went through what we call the age of Napoleon, the era of Napoleon. Now, there's a question, guys. Elaborate or discuss the impact or significance of French Revolution. So, If you observe, every topic I'm actually discussing a question. For American Revolution also, I discussed about the impact or significance of American Revolution. यहाँ पे भी we'll be seeing the impact or significance of French Revolution. What was the impact? Now, impact of French Revolution can be seen on three dimensions. One is impact on France. Number two is impact on England and Europe. Number three, impact on the world. See, French Revolution had its impact, had its consequence, had its effects on France, on England, on Europe, and England, and eventually in entire world, in every part of the world. Now, impact on France. For French people, this was the end of monarchy. Monarchy, particularly absolute monarchy, ended. France, for the first time, saw a republican government where the head of the state was coming from the people. The constitution, a constitutional government was established in France with absolutely no divine rights. A government which was for the people, of the people, by the people, and not a God's creation. I mean, a government which is not divine, a government which is not actually based on God or God's numbers and all that. For the first time, France was seeing something like that. ये पहली बार हो रहा था. France was seeing something like this, a republican system in Europe. And also, France became the torch bearer of humanity, liberty, equality, and fraternity. In fact, these three principles of French Revolution eventually became synonymous with all revolutions in the world, every democracy. Liberty, equality, fraternity became the central idea of democracy in the world. And you observe this continuously. The liberty, equality, fraternity is actually observed by the people in total support with each other. Then France also gave the famous Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, which is basically the first constitution of France. The first time somebody is identifying legally the requirement or the importance of rights of the people. Somebody is recognizing the importance of rights of the people for the first time. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Some other impact of France's privilege-based system ended, which is basically, you remember how they had the estate system, where you have to, in fact, for example, if you are from the aristocratic class, only then you can become member of the government. Otherwise, you can't. Types privilege-based system. That is, your birth decides your status in the society, and unfortunately, you don't actually get to control your birth. The privilege based system, establishment of equality, establishment of um, um, equality of people, absolute and total equality of people along with the rulers and the ruled. Yes. And end of feudalism and serfdom, strengthening the middle class. I mean, in fact, the French Revolution actually ended feudalism and serfdom, strengthening the middle class. It also ended the forced labor, abolished the forced labor systems, improved the conditions of peasants. In fact, it supported the rights of the middle class. And in France, church, which was actually the total authority, ended. The authority, the control, the rule of church ended. In fact, France, for the first time, also got religious freedom recognized. In fact, religious freedoms were guaranteed to the citizens. The property of church was confiscated. Priests were forced to take an oath to be loyal to the nation, and that state would pay salaries for the members of church. In fact, members of church and the church itself became state property. Yes. So the rule of church ended in France. And some other impacts were Napoleon, when he came to power, he did some administrative and judicial changes like reorganization of France after the revolution. Like, for example, France was divided into provinces called departments with the districts called 374 cantonments and smaller tehsils or group of villages known as communes like Paris commune, Lyon commune, Cannes commune, like this. So France was divided. Plenty of divisions were done. Administratively and judicially, France was reorganized by Napoleon. Also, Napoleon introduced codification of laws. For the first time in the world, we saw the Napoleonic Code, which is basically people were now to get punished on the basis of their acts, not on the basis of their status or their class. ये दुनिया में पहली बार हो रहा था. People were to be punished on the basis of class, not on the basis of um, based of act, not on the basis of class. Also, a uniform judicial system was introduced. Like, for example, rich man, poor man, landlord, landless peasant, villager, middle class, upper class. It doesn't matter. They were all equal under the judicial law. In fact, Napoleonic Code became the inspiration for the Indian Penal Code and all the penal codes of the English penal law of future. Later, Napoleon actually codified this penal code. Also, Napoleon made penal code softer. What I mean by softer is, before Napoleon, in general, the punishments which were practiced in the world was absolutely radical. I mean, these were radical, totally dangerous type of punishments. Later on, Napoleon actually codified these laws, and punishments were made, you can say, punishment based on the act, not on the basis of anything else. I mean, if see, you know how we have, there's a belief that you need to have proportional punishment. Like, see, if you murder, then it is right to give you capital punishment. Giving murder capital punishment for pickpocketing is like excessive punishment. Punishing a person beyond his act or beyond the status of his act is actually wrong type of logic. That one, yes. Napoleon. And then economic impact. Napoleon understood that if economy of France is not fixed, nothing is ever going to be good. Nothing is ever going to be better. Nothing is ever going to be uh, worth it. So he actually removed all those discriminative taxes. In fact, octroi, which was regional tax, which was being collected from the people, that was removed. See, octroi was a practice. I told you previously that at the local village level, there used to be this local taxation that was removed. That way, entire France was brought under a single tax model or a single tax system. Single tax system. Octroi. Then, what is the impact on England is England initially welcomed the French Revolution because eventually it would bring democracy in France. That way, England will not have any, could say, political challenges from France in the world. But supporting French Revolution economically, financially, also made England bankrupt. Due to supporting anti-revolutionary activities, economic crisis emerged in England. England also saw economic crisis. Slowly, England also started to observe social and political reforms. In fact, parliamentary reforms started. England में serfdom, feudalism was also gone. Yes, they see what is the idea of GST? Single taxation system. England and in England, the French Revolution became an inspiration for the Great Irish Revolution of the 18th century. Irish Revolution and Irish independence movements take their inspiration from French Revolution only. In Poland, revolutionary activities increased. In French Revolution, में eventually it also led to us idea of nationalism. Many nationalist movements started, just like how French people started to call themselves as French citizens. Germans began to call themselves German citizens, Italian citizens, Turkish, Algerian, Spanish, Polish, Russian, Great British. So this sort of say, idea of nationalism, idea of citizenry, idea of belonging to a nation, idea of belonging to people, and the sovereignty and the total independence of the people. That idea developed further in France, in the world. In fact, French Revolution gave strong impetus, strong support to the nation state system, eventually even supporting unification of Italy and Germany. Now, what are the final effects of it? Democracy became a standard idea thanks to French Revolution. Liberty, equality, fraternity became popular. In fact, most European people started to go against their monarchs. That may be Austria, that may be Sweden, that may be Spain, that may be Portugal, it doesn't matter. So French Revolution, regardless of how much Europe attempted, the revolution could not be suppressed. A sense of nationalism started to grow among the people. People began to feel allegiance to the country, not to the king. In fact, before French Revolution, people used to call themselves as subjects of King Henry VIII or subjects of King Leopold of Austria. But after the revolution, people started to call themselves as Austrians or British or Finnish or Polish or Spanish. You understand? Rather than being called as the subjects of their king, they started to call themselves people of their country. And everybody and equality under law also was established by French Revolution. In fact, due to Napoleon, after he came to power in 1799, he invaded many parts of the world, many parts of Europe, leading to eventually independence movements in many colonies. Like for example, the French Revolution was inspiration for independence movements by Simon Bolivar in Venezuela and Paraguay, Uruguay, and basically the South American independence movements were all inspiration from Napoleonic view. Napoleon actually installed a king of his brother, a king of Spain, eventually leading to resistance. And Venezuela declared its independence from Spain in 1810, thanks to French Revolution. Finally, Napoleon came to power. See, there's another common question which comes: Napoleon was the child of revolution as well as destroyer of revolution. Do you agree? Why we call Napoleon the child of revolution is Napoleon Bonaparte would not exist if the revolution had not happened. Napoleon Bonaparte होता ही नहीं अगर revolution नहीं होता. Okay, remember this. At the same time, when Napoleon came to power, he went against the very principles of revolution on which the revolution was built: liberty, equality, fraternity, free speech, rights of the people, rights of the world. He broke everything. Press freedom, press everything he stopped. So that's why while we call him the child of revolution, we also successfully even call him the destroyer of the revolution, because Napoleon destroyed the idea of revolution. He destroyed the concept of revolution. He ended the revolution actually. Napoleon ended the revolution. So that's French Revolution is. There's a question which comes. The question is, explain how the foundations of modern world were laid by American and French Revolution. Ah, Neha, in fact, the position of women in Europe does not improve until the coming of World War II. हुआ क्या था in World War One and World War Two? In World War One, all the dads, all papas died. World War Two में all the sons died. By the time both the wars ended, Europe only had women. अब इलेक्शन में कोई किसी न किसी को तो वोट डालना ही पड़ता है ना, because all the men were dead, right to vote were given to women. right to employment were given to women because the men were already dead. That was the problem. If World War One and Two had not happened, women would have never got their rights. Yes. So the question is, explain how the foundations of modern world were laid by the American and French Revolution. See, for this question, this is actually a 2019 question. The answer is pretty straightforward. Basically, he's asking you to write impact of American Revolution and French Revolution. Masses are better than classes, right? Equality of people, liberty, equality, fraternity, rights of the people. All of these have come to existence because of American and French Revolution. Basically, in this answer, you need to write the impacts of American Revolution, impacts of French Revolution, and conclude. Identify the features of the modern world, which is equality of law, rights of women, rights of people, classless society, democracy, liberty, equality, fraternity, a republican system, head of the state coming, and the code of law, Napoleonic code or code of law. All of these are features of modern world. Where does all these features come from? American and फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन. सो क्वेश्चंस ज्यादा हद तक ऐसे स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चंस होते हैं. फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन यू नीड टू आंसर द impacts of American and French Revolution. In tomorrow's class, we will first see the answer for this question, and then we will see the impact of Napoleon and Congress of Vienna, the 1815 onwards, how the world was going through. Okay. So for today, we'll end the session here, guys. That's it. Thank you. You have a nice day. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And mostly from tomorrow, we'll also be having an evening class. Evenings, we'll be doing MCQs 8 to 9 in the night. Morning 8 to 9, we'll be seeing the world history. Thank you, guys. Bye bye.